Hello folks, SimPilot here. Welcome back to another Microsoft Flight Simulator video. This is our fourth episode of the G1000 tutorial series. And in this one, we are going to use the flight plan we created in the last episode and fly that plan from Paderborn, Echo Delta Lima Papa, all the way into Hanover, Echo Delta Delta Victor. Before we start, I'd like to thank everybody who subscribed to my channel recently. You guys are awesome. You guys are so encouraging, and it keeps me going, and it keeps me wanting to do more tutorials for you guys because of the support I have received so far. Thank you very much, guys. I cannot say enough or tell enough how much I appreciate your support. Thank you very much. Okay, let's jump into the cockpit. We are going to power the aircraft, taxi all the way to the runway, depart using our instruments, and then approach and do an ILS landing into Hanover Airport, runway 09 left. So let's get our aircraft powered on. So battery comes on, beacon and nav light comes on. Let's check the fuel. Throttle just a little bit. Everything looks fine. Prime the engine. Let's get rid of that. That's enough. Turn the magnetos to both and then start the engine. Okay, looks like we have a good engine start, and because we haven't turned on the avionics, we have our engine information displayed on our PFD, and this is about to change now. The alternator comes on and avionics can come on too, and as you see now we have everything displayed over here. So if you remember, this is the flight plan we created together, which takes us from Echo Delta Lima Papa to Echo Delta Delta Victor. And this is what we are going to fly today. And if you remember, because I created this again for the tutorial, our altitudes are not looking good again. So that needs to be, according to the chart, 1700, and the other one needs to be 3500. So let's just correct this quickly. 1700. Not like that actually. That stays one. Let's see what happens. Oh no, that's not what we want. Okay. We want this. A Cessna cannot go up that high. Okay, let's just correct this too. 3, 5. Cool. So we are all set. Let's just set our PFD to get some information. Wind information option 3. Back. And I'm gonna turn off the inset map for now because it's cluttering my view at the moment and I need some other information displayed here. Let's put our CDI source to GPS so that we can use the nav mode. And how we are going to track and measure that 2.7 nautical miles from pad and NDB or pad VOR and that 5.6. Well, one way of doing is this, but this is not going to show you how many miles away you are from a location, in terms like if you are traveling the opposite direction. That's what I was trying to say. This is going to give you the distance to your destination, but it's not going to measure how many miles you traveled from your departure. So to do that, we need to get to our nav2 radio and tune in this frequency of the VOR. Okay, so 10855. When we plug this in, if we put the Nav2 here, if you check, now we have a display. We have the display of the distance here, so that's good. And on the other hand, I want to put the GPS here. Actually, let's not just put the GPS. Let's just put the Warburg 113.7. So scroll up 113.7 and change this to nav1. Okay, now we know how far we are from Warburg, which is our final waypoint in our departure, and how we have the display over here that will tell us how far we traveled away from the runway. Okay. Other than that, I think everything looks fine. Let's set our altitude to 3500 and let's program our autopilot. So nav mode is on and flight director comes on, and we are going to use flight level change today to have a decent flight without worrying too much about the power or throttle control. And I'm going to set that to, if I can, 80 knots. And one thing I want to show you is if we check these references here, it says this is our glide speed reference. That means you can use this when you are approaching a runway and trying to glide in nice and easy. And this VY you see over here is our recommended climb speed. So let's just make that 80, because I know I tried it so many times and I've flown the Cessna 172 so many times. It will be fine at 80 knots, so that we can have a speed bug on our speed tape. We will deal with the minimums later on. I will talk about that, and we will program that when we are close to the approach. But other than that, I think we are ready to roll. So taxi light comes on. That can go away. Let's zoom in a little bit to see the airport a little bit. So what we are going to do is we will turn right and follow this taxiway all the way to the runway and then depart from there. So let's bring the yoke back. Flight surfaces check. Full left, full right, full forward, full back, right rudder, left rudder, and then toe brakes. Okay, everything looks fine and we are ready to go. Let's disengage the parking brake and give her a little bit of power and make a right turn. Oops, oops, oops. Let's not chop that guy into half. Okay, so we are going to go down all the way to the edge of the parking area or the gates, and then we will follow the taxi line that's over here. This guy right here. So we will follow this taxi line, take the next right. Let's just slow down a little bit more. Alright, turn, turn, turn. There we go. Overshoot to turn a little bit, but it's okay. We are fine. Left turn from here. So while we are taxiing all the way to the runway, what my plan is to show you how good the simulator follows the departure, the instrument departure that we have seen on the chart. I will hand fly the aircraft a little bit above the runway and then engage the autopilot so that we can focus on the display and check that distance that we put there on our navigation nav2 radio and see how much it aligns with the departure chart we have seen. So let's keep going. We got a little bit of way. We can actually take off from here, but I need that full distance of the runway to speed up a little bit to have a good speed when we start to climb. The reason being, we have to be at 1700 feet, which means according to our altimeter we have to climb 1000 feet in about 2.7 nautical miles. So that's why I want to use the full length of the runway to have some speed before we start climbing, and that will help us to get that altitude with no problems, and from there we will keep climbing all the way to 3500. That's why I set it here on our altimeter tape, because I don't want to deal with the altimeter knob when we are at 1700 and lose that valuable time, because we have another 2.6 miles after that first waypoint to be at 3500, which means we have to climb another 1700-ish before we reach there, so that we ensure we are above 3500 when we hit that second waypoint and when we are getting ready to make the turn to the Warburg VOR station to heading 124. Alright, I'm not planning to use flaps. This aircraft can take off without flaps completely fine. Let's stop here for a second, turn on our landing lights, taxi lights can come off. Pitot heat, I will turn it for now, but I don't think we are going to need that, and the strobe comes on too. And I think we are ready to roll, everything looks fine. Let's just reset our view, give her a little bit power, release the brakes, keep her in the middle as much as we possibly can, and takeoff speed, takeoff thrust set. We are nicely accelerating, airspeed is live, 40 knots checked, 50 knots checked, and rotate. Alright, we are up in the air nice and easy. So we will follow the runway heading, right this. Small corrections, but couple degrees off is completely fine. And now I'm gonna engage the autopilot and the nav mode and the flight level change mode can come on. Alright, so now the autopilot is taking care of everything. We can set that to 80, and then we can start looking to our PFD for that distance. We just passed over the VOR station and now we are traveling away from it. Our course is 055 as we have seen on the chart. And now if you take a look at here, let me zoom out a little bit on that, we are getting close. So LP 100 is the first one where we need to be at 1700, okay, and then this LP 104 is the second one where we need to be at 3500 feet. So we are almost at 1700 completely fine, so we nailed that one, right? And we will keep going. See that our course is 56 and our heading is 55. That's because we have a little bit of wind coming from the left side pushing us there, and the GPS is trying to correct that. As you see, the airplane is jumping around. Even if we don't have that much, it's 2 knots wind, it shouldn't affect that much. I don't know if this is something with the live weather system. Actually, I'm not just the weather system because I'm not using live weather. But let's just keep a close eye on the distance here. We are at 2 nautical miles out, 2.1, and we should see a right turn at around 2.6 nautical miles. A little bit early, but that's okay. I think we can call that accurate. So we are now on course 77. We are at 2.6 nautical miles, just passing LP 100 and traveling towards LP 104. So those distances, to be honest, are not for GPS departures. Those distances are for VOR departures, where you don't have this smooth turn of the GPS. You literally travel all the way to here and then take a right turn, travel all the way to here and then take another right turn and start traveling towards the VOR station. But as you see here, the GPS is more accurate than a VOR radio, and it's following this line smoothly and perfectly so that we are on track to Warburg VOR station. So let's just watch that a little bit more until 5.6 miles, and we are probably going to cross 3500 before that. I don't see a problem there. So when we reach 3500 and to our second waypoint, I will set the altitude to 5000 feet, and we will climb to our cruise altitude from there. And I will probably not keep you guys here with me when we are cruising, because that's a long distance to Hanover, around 90 nautical miles, and Cessna is not the fastest aircraft, so it's gonna take too long, and I don't want to keep the video too long, so I'll probably cut it there and bring you guys back when we are getting ready to approach to discuss what we need to do to get ready for the approach. As you see now, it's traveling towards LP 104, and it's gonna take a right turn right from there. 5.2, watch here. 5.3, 5.4, we are getting there. 5, and I think it was 5.6 or 7, I can't remember now, and I don't want to go and check the chart again, but it was 5.6, I believe. Yep, 5.6, and now it's making a right turn. So this means the GPS followed the departure chart perfectly. And that's what I wanted to show you guys when you are using GPS. You can do the same thing with just using VOR navigation, but that will be a subject for another tutorial. So we are just reached 3500, so let's set ourselves for 5000 and turn on the flight level change mode and bring that speed down to 80 and climb there. And we are traveling nicely over to the Warburg VOR station, which is down here. And as you see, so now we are done with this bearing, and we will discuss what we can put there when we are trying to track our approach. I have an idea about that, and we will discuss that when I bring you guys back. But okay, we are getting close to Warburg VOR. We are 7.2 nautical miles out. I had to restart this flight because my computer crashed, and I started recording, and I said let me wait until we reach the Warburg waypoint and we will make our turn from here, and I'll probably cut it again and bring you guys back. But while we are traveling towards Warburg VOR, I'd like to share one more thing which I forgot when I was doing the G1000 basics tutorial, the first episode. I think I just missed this one. So when you are on this screen, if you use the inner knob and scroll to the right, it will give you some additional information. So this is the waypoints which you can search for, and it will give you the elevation. And let's try Warburg and see what it brings up. Let's do this, and W, Whiskey, Bravo, and where is R? Oh, okay, I think this is the airports. I'm sorry, this is the airports, not the waypoints, and it will give you all the frequencies, ILS frequencies, so on and so forth. So for instance, if we check our departure, I thought I'd scroll to the waypoints, but apparently I did not. So let's just check our arrival airport, which is Echo Delta Delta Victor, and see what it has for us in here and what kind of frequencies we can expect to see. As you see, when we scroll over to Hanover, it is displaying the frequencies. Bremen radar is the radar center that controls the airspace above Hanover. Echo Delta Victor is obviously Hanover airport. And ILS, and we will need this ILS runway 09 left, 108.3. We will keep this in mind. I will come back to this when we are getting close to our approach. So when you are done with this, remove the cursor and go to, I don't know what this auxiliary is. I have to look for this and see what this is for. But and one more thing, if you remember, we are running full reach, and actually we are choking our engine because there is not too much oxygen in the air at 5,000 feet. And when I pull back on the mixture, just listen how the engine reacts to that. You see that? Now, because we were feeding it too much fuel, it was choking the engine and it wasn't generating enough power. It is very interesting to see that this is simulated in the simulator as well. So when you are in the same situation, if your aircraft is not generating enough power, make sure you come back on the mixture just a tiny bit and it will now increase the power. But I need to now cut the throttle back to get around 2400, which is a great cruising RPM for this aircraft. Yeah, just about there, looks fine to me. So keep this in mind, guys. Your mixture is what's cutting your power because you are choking your engine. So back to the subject here. Scroll one more, and now it's showing you the nearest airports. And if you use the outer knob, it will show you the nearest VOR stations along with their frequencies. If you press on it to bring the cursor, and if I can bring this cursor, now you see you can scroll down and see each VOR station and their frequencies. So let's just go back and then back to the map page. This is what I wanted to show you guys, and we made our turn towards the Warburg, from Warburg VOR to our next waypoint, which I believe is Robeg. Right, that will be our next point, and then after Robeg, which I think will be we will get to USR, and after USR is our initial approach fix, which is Desen. Okay, so we have a little bit of way to go. To be exact, I think we have 42 nautical miles. That will take quite a bit of time. Let me turn off the landing lights. I forgot to turn that off. We don't need the pitot heat anymore. Okay, so we are on our way. I will bring you guys back when we are getting close to our final approach fix, probably about Robeg. When we reach there, I will bring you back and we will start setting our instruments and our GPS, not the GPS, our G1000 for our approach and ILS landing. See you guys there when we are getting close. So while we are traveling from Warburg, I want to point out one more thing. If you see, we don't have any magenta line anymore. That's because our approach, if you look at the flight plan, our approach starts from Warburg for some reason. So that's why we don't have a magenta line. So what that means is we have to go back to the procedure space and we need to activate the approach phase. And now, as you see on the other screen, what has changed, now we have our magenta line back, because now we are in the approach phase and we are flying this part of the plan. So if you see that happening to you in any of your flight plans, and if you lose that magenta line, your GPS will still follow it, but to have that ready, just activate the approach phase so that everything stays as it should. Alright, I'll bring you guys back when we are at Robeg. Welcome back. We are getting close to Robeg. We are 10 miles out, and if we check our flight plan, we need to be at 4250 at Robeg, so we need to descend a little bit. And in last tutorial I talked about like how you calculate your descent. I do it with mainly two ways, and the second way is probably not going to apply to a Cessna with this much altitude. It's for maybe to turboprops or airliners. But how I do it is, we are traveling at 103 knots and our true airspeed is 110, 13. Let's just round it up to 120. That means we are traveling 2 nautical miles every minute. So if we take a look at here, from 5,000 to 4,200, we have 800 feet difference. So that means before I get there, I have 4 minutes, and in that 4 minutes I need to lose 800 feet. So that means if I go and check and put myself to a 200 feet per minute descent, by the time I get there I will be at my desired altitude. So that's how I calculate my descent. This is one way of doing it, and the second way of doing it, I think we will discuss that when we step up our game to turboprops, and when we are doing a flight with a turboprop, we will discuss the second way of calculating that descent, or where you should start descending when we are doing it. So we are coming down nicely. We are 6.9 miles, and yes, we will probably be at our desired altitude. And this is not, not 100% accurate all the time. So if you see like you are still above, just increase your descent rate and bring it to, like, let's say 300 feet a minute if you think that you cannot make it there. And I forgot to change the altitude though. Now it should do it. Okay. So this is how I do my descent calculation. So while we are getting close and descending, we need to get ourselves ready for the approach and ILS landing part of things. Unfortunately, the G1000 unit cannot do a ILS landing using the GPS. So G3000 can, and airliners can use their GPS units to descend and land, but not the G1000. So we need to use one of our nav radios, not one of our nav radios. You always use the nav 1 for active navigation, so we have to use this one, and we have to tune the localizer frequency, which I put here at the standby, to initiate our approach phase. Okay. So if we check the chart, this is the same chart we have seen on our third episode, and we are almost here. We will pass Robeg and descend down to 4,000 all the way into Decim. Decim, if you look here, we need to be at 3,000 feet, and this is our initial approach fix. From here we have 4.9, 7.9, 8.3, 8.8 nautical miles until the touchdown zone. Okay, so we are going to set this, and our localizer frequency is at the top of the chart, which is 108.3, and our final approach course is 090. So let's just go back to the cockpit and set these up. So for our frequency, it's already there. I'm going to switch that to the active frequency so that we have that in there. The next thing I want to do is I want to go back to this references page, and I want to bring my cursor, and let's just keep an eye on the altitude too. So we are at 3380 and we have 2 nautical miles. We'll be fine. So let's bring the cursor down. I want to set our speed bug for the glide so that we know exactly our speed when we are at the glide slope, and I want to turn off the climb speed bug, and I want to set our minimums. So how do you do that? If you go back and check the chart, let me see, where was that information? So this is for Cat 3 ILS landing, and this is for Cat 2. We'll probably use this one. So decision altitude, which is 267, is your barometric altitude. So if you're using your barometer, which we are, this is what you should set as your minimum. So this one over here is your decision height, which your radio altitude or radar altitude. And the difference between two is 167 feet. That's exactly the runway elevation. If you check here, runway elevation is 167 feet, and that's exactly the difference between two, because your barometric altitude is your altitude from the sea level, whereas your radio altitude is your altitude from the ground level. Okay, so let's just set this 267 as our minimum. And we cannot set 367, but we can set 270 and that'll be completely fine. And we need to turn this on. Now we have a barometric altitude minimum reference here. So what this does is, when you are at this altitude, if you don't have a visual of the runway, you have to go around and do a missed approach. So we are at 4200, but now we need to go down to 3000 for our initial approach fix. So I will initiate that, flight level, V-speed, and I think this time I'll do a little bit more than 200 feet per minute, maybe 4, and I think we should be perfectly fine. Actually, we can still be fine with 200 per minute, because we are still far away. So that's descending nicely. We have our minimum set, we have our localizer frequency set, and now all we are waiting for is to make that final turn into the runway to intercept the localizer. So when we intercept the localizer, let me go there and try to explain this. Okay, so decim, as I said, is our initial approach fix. From here, it's a straight course into the runway, which is our final approach course is, if I go down there, I think I should be able to see it. Yes, our final approach course is 92. Okay, so back to the map. If I can use the cursor, this is a little bit annoying. So that's a direct course into the runway, and we need to initiate, we need to press or turn on the approach mode right there, so that we can capture the localizer and the glide slope and bring the aircraft nicely down in towards the runway. Also, another thing we need to do when we are there is to reduce our speed and start deploying the flaps. We are going to do full flaps landing, and I think this has 3 stages, 10, 20 and 30 degrees, so we have to deploy the flaps in 3 stages, and to be able to do it, we need to cut our power and slow us a little bit, so that we don't stress the airframe while deploying the flaps. Okay, I think we are nicely set for our approach here. We are getting close. I will bring you guys back when we are about to make the final turn into the runway for our initial approach fix. Okay, we are 2 miles away from our final turn into the runway, and I want to do some cleanup on the PFD screen. I don't need this bearing 2 anymore, so I will remove that and turn it off. Okay, I will still keep the wind information, and I will keep the nav1 here so that we have a needle pointing to our localizer. The rest I think we will keep here until we land. So let's just check quickly. We are about to make our final turn, and as we make the turn, you will see this needle coming close to here, and we will line up, the magenta line will line up with the needle. As you see, now the aircraft will make the turn and align us and keep us on track, and when we complete our turn and see the runway right down there, I will switch to I will turn the approach mode on and switch the CDI to localizer 1, which is this source over here. So now, as you see, the aircraft started to descend. I need to come back on my throttle. Let's take a look at the runway while it's aligning us with the glide slope. And the diamond you see here is our glide slope indicator, which tells us that we are perfectly on the glide slope. I'm going to cut the power quite a bit to slow us down so that we can start deploying the flaps. But looks like we captured the glide slope. It turned to green over here. We captured the localizer, so we are perfectly aligned with the runway, both vertically and horizontally. So I'll deploy one level of flaps. We are at 100 knots. I will keep the throttle at around 1750-ish RPMs, or maybe 1800. Deploy another level of flaps. Well, I can say it, if I can say it. And maybe slow a little bit more. Cut the power. So we are traveling nicely into the runway. Just because I don't want to look into that side to see the map, I'm going to bring the map and zoom in a little bit so that we see where we are a little bit better rather than trying to look there. So we are closing to our glide speed. So that's time to deploy another level of flaps, and I think that is yeah. I was setting the parking brake, hitting the wrong joystick button. Sorry about that. But now we deployed the flaps. Now we need to speed up a little bit because we are getting close to our stall speed. So I don't want to run into problems. We are still at the glide slope, descending nicely, and I see two white and two red lights on the poppies. So we are fine. Let's increase power a bit more to get us to the glide speed, which is 67. So we are climbing. Our speed is increasing there. Feel like it's a little bit too much now. So all you need to do is at this point is to control your throttle and descend nicely into the runway. At any point you can turn off the autopilot and try to hand fly if you want to, but I'll just wait to show you guys how accurately it will bring us down, and when we should worry about turning off the autopilot and start hand flying the last piece of the approach into the runway. So we are, I think, good in terms of speed. 1800 RPMs is a good estimation to keep us at our glide speed, and we are 3 miles away from the runway. So the last 0.5 miles is our short final, and we are getting close to our minimums, 1000 feet, so 800-ish to go to make our decision. But we already have a visual of the runway. So if this was a cloudy day and limited visibility, you should be able to see the runway when you are down to that altitude. Otherwise you have to initiate a missed approach or go around procedure. So as you see, we are perfectly fine on the glide slope. 2 red lights, 2 white lights, and everything looks completely fine and perfect at the moment. It's a little bit bumpy. The aircraft is bouncing around a little bit, but G1000 is doing a great job to keep us aligned with the glide slope and the localizer. And this is where the reason I wanted to make this tutorial, to show you guys how accurate it is and how nicely it is doing the approach to the runway. Even if there is crosswind, it will correct for that crosswind and keep us in line with the runway and keep us at the glide slope. So we are at our glide speed, everything looks perfectly fine, flaps are fully deployed, we are ready to land. I am still not touching anything, it is still the autopilot flying the aircraft, and I will probably take over when we are below the barometric minimums and hand fly the rest all the way into the runway and take us out of the runway using that taxiway to the parking area. Still I'm not touching anything, we are still perfectly on the glide slope as you see here, and boy, it did a great job with bringing us down nicely. So now one of the PAPI lights gone, so that is my signal to take the control and cut the power and then let it float. Now it's time to flare, keep it there just a little bit rudder and let it drop off the sky nicely. Okay, not the best landing I had made, but we are safely down. Alright folks, this is going to be it for the 4th episode of our G1000 tutorial series. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications if you want to get notified when a new episode comes out. Until next time, take care of yourself. See you in the next video.